Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Purple Insider. Matthew Coller here, and the most requested guest out there returns to the show from Defector, Drew Magary. We talked over the summer so many times. What was JJ McCarthy going to look like? What was Sam Darnold going to look like? What should we expect from the Vikings? Maybe it'll be great. Maybe it'll be terrible. What will happen? And now, Drew, we are deep enough into this National Football League season to know it's 11-2, my friend, and Sam Darnold is top 5 in the NFL in many of the important categories. How are you feeling, sir?
I feel great. I do. I do want to know, you said a lot of requests. Like how many is that, like 3 people? Like I don't think there are like 1,000 people being like, you gotta have Drew come on. All he does is talk over you. It's the best. It's gonna be awesome.
Okay, so what if it's at least 9 people have said, when is Drew going to come on? I think that's significant enough for that to be your lead-in.
Oh, it's a delight. I feel great. This has been so much fun. I'm actually writing about it this week because, this is as unique a circumstance as you're going to get for the Vikings, where they weren't supposed to be good this season. It's kind of like almost a drawback of them being good. I don't actually think that's true, but it was like they weren't supposed to be any good. They are quite good, and it's all house money. So if they don't make it to the Super Bowl, and statistically they are probably not going to, it's totally okay. And whatever decision, I don't have to worry about the JJ or Sam fight even now after what Darnold did to the Falcons, because everyone involved in that sort of conversation has already agreed to postpone it until the season's over. So I don't have to worry. If they're not going to worry about it, I don't have to worry about it. And somehow I've been very disciplined in doing that. I haven't been like rushing to fight with people over a Sam or JJ or anything like that. I've been cool.
I think that you're looking at these things along the same lines that I am. Maybe not necessarily the house money part, because when you get to this point, you always think, well, how many chances do you ever get? There's no guarantee that in the future you just have 11-2 starts to your seasons, and you have to take full advantage of that every opportunity that you get. So
yeah, but then you start freaking yourself out, right? It's like,
right.
Oh, okay, we're never going to get a chance like this again. So it comes along once a decade. If we blow it, then we're dead. That sucks. And like, I've had that happen in 2009. I think I had happen in 1998. I don't feel like the 98 team I did not think it was replicable when it was happening. And I remember after they lost the NFC title game, one of the local columnists, I think it might have been Jim Suhan, I can't remember who, but they were like, that was kind of it. And I knew it in my heart and want to believe it, but I totally believed it. And this is different because with the kid in the bullpen, it does not feel like this is the only chance. If he comes in, he's a rock star, then all of a sudden we have an open decade. And so I have that possibility sitting on the back shelf, and that's not a bad thing to fall back on.
Yeah, and even if Sam Darnold stays, it's not like this has to be the end of the road. I mean, I get sort of exhausted with the idea that if you were to give a quarterback any sort of money, that your franchise just completely collapses and you can't play football anymore. That doesn't seem to be true, since most of the NFC teams in the playoff race right now have quarterbacks on second contracts. But I think there's a bigger
But think
picture.
about the second contracts that have been doled out recently, to Kirk, to Trevor Lawrence, to Dak Prescott, to Aaron Rodgers. Like, there have been a lot of bad QB contracts that have been handed out lately. So, you sit there with, you don't want to have the GM brain too much, but when that Sam Darnold's playing as well as he is, as cheap as he is, it's a nice little bonus. Like, it's like, don't you just love a bargain?
But also Philadelphia paid their quarterback, and Jared Goff has made big money. Matthew Stafford was on a bigger contract when he won the Super Bowl.
Yes.
If your franchise knows what it's doing, this doesn't have to be a total catastrophe. And I think the bigger picture on this year, the most important takeaway from this year, is that your franchise knows what it's doing. And it's taken a really long time for people to buy into that, because, at 5-0, they could always still fall off. After Jacksonville, they could always still collapse. But now when you look at the path, the roster construction, the way that Kevin O'Connell has handled Sam Darnold, the impact of the receivers, they've even built a line that can block sometimes. I mean, it's the handling of free agency, Brian Flores' ability to find and evaluate players, all of this stuff coming together is repeatable into the future. I don't think Brian Flores randomly lucked into seeing Blake Cashman on tape and wanting him, things like that. I think the competency has been confirmed for this leadership.
Yeah, they know what they're doing. I totally believe in Kevin. I completely believe in Kwesi, and that's not how I have normally felt. And like we have said this before, when we talked, they're doing all the things that that I want them to do, which never happens. And it's not like I'm some football genius or anything like that. It's just sort of like common sense fandom and how an NFL front office don't always go hand in hand because there's so many egos and so much stupidity involved in NFL front offices. And there's still residue of that. Like we're still paying the price for Kwesi letting Ryan Grigson take Ed Ingram in the second round, right? Like we're still that's still a massive hole in the offense. And Blake Brandel played badly against the Falcons too. So that, those things are still sort of red flags in my mind, but it's all sort of, all of my nitpicks are taking a backseat to the fact that I just like sitting back every week and watching Darnold huck the ball 60 yards downfield to someone who's going to catch it. That's pretty cool.
There was a lot of the hucking, but as
Love
much as
it.
I have enjoyed, everyone has enjoyed the arm talent. But what I did not realize about Sam Darnold and why he deserves as much credit as anybody else here, as the receivers, as the coach, is that he's playing within the structure of the offense like a regular routine quarterback that's a starter is supposed to do. Like the things that Nick Mullins would do if you put him in, which is to have the timing and know where to throw and complete the shorter. Well, Mullins throws it down the field too, but you know what I mean? Like the things that you would talk about for a game manager. There are so many instances in that Falcons game where he drops back, correctly reads the defense, and throws the football where he's supposed to go on time, in rhythm, with accuracy. And as we do think about how good this can be down the stretch, if you rely only on 42-yard bombs, 52-yard bombs, okay, well, that's going to go way up and down on a weekly basis. But a post route that's 18 yards to the end zone, or a play where Addison and Jefferson are working together and the defense kind of screws it up and Addison's open and he hits it on time, like all that stuff coming together over the last 4 weeks has been extremely impressive to me, because I think all of that is repeatable down after down, possession after possession.
Yeah, it has that feel. Particularly the Falcons game. It was like, we've talked all through the offseason and and even before Sam or JJ McCarthy got here, about sort of the weaponry on this offense, right? JJ, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, all that stuff. And the Falcons game was even more so than the Bears game, felt like the first time that all of those pieces were operating at maximum capacity with one another. And I think it was part of O'Connell's plan, because I remember reading about this, I think it was yesterday, Alec Lewis wrote about it in The Athletic, where when JJ McCarthy went down, O'Connell had to go back and he had to, sort of study Sam Darnold's game. What was Sam Darnold good at? Turned out that what he really liked throwing were like deep in cuts and stuff like that. So he designed the offense to have as many of those plays as possible. So, all through those first few months of the season when Darnold's hucking it downfield over and over again. And I remember you saying like, okay, pull it back a little bit. You can be a little bit Zimmerified by like 5% and run the ball. But I think O'Connell was like, no, we got to get this long game going. And once it clicks, then we can dial it back, because everyone will be so terrified of our effective long game that we can do anything we want. And I think that's kind of, I don't want to use the Falcons game as a one game sample size, right? It's too small, but it had that greatest show on turf energy to it. That is something you don't feel a lot when you watch any football team play, let alone this one. So that was a big deal to me. I felt like that O'Connell was, I don't want to say he was playing 3D chess or anything like that, but there was a clear vision to what he was doing when he was ordering up all of those long bombs. He's got, and now that Jordan Addison is tracking the ball downfield like a sniper, it's like that. Okay, like how do you stop this now? Like it feels like a dangerous offense more than just me hoping the quarterback makes a good play. It's now, okay, I know he can make a good play, and that's a nice little transition to have.
I've also thought that there is real value in doing something that the rest of the league is not doing. And we've seen the average depth of target in the NFL go down and down and down because
right. Everybody with the shell, right?
Right. Teams are playing these deep safeties, and the Atlanta Falcons played the deepest safeties that I've ever seen in my entire life. So deep to the point where there was a lot of one-on-one and open space.
And it didn't matter either. And they have good safeties. Like Jesse Bates up in that game. That doesn't happen.
Yeah, no, they do. And you could see JT O'Sullivan of QB School did a great breakdown showing just how there's a magnetism to Justin Jefferson and how Kevin O'Connell takes advantage of that when it comes to the deep shots. But the whole league is running underneath stuff and trying to have long drives and stay on the field, which we see them doing against the Vikings. But here's the Vikings with deep shots saying, we're not going to let your safeties dictate how we're going to run our offense, but this can't succeed unless Sam Darnold can also throw the 6-yard pass. And and it can't succeed if he throws it to the other team 3 times a game. And the last 4 games where it feels like he is locked in to when do I huck it deep? When do I take the underneath? He's not a huge check down guy, but when do I take even just the option that's right there? How about at the end of the game, the rollout where he finds Josh Oliver just underneath, but it goes for 26 yards. These are just general execution things of regular offensive stuff that will travel from a week to week to week basis that makes me think as we go down the stretch that he's a dangerous quarterback to be facing for other teams, because if you pressure him, he can do something crazy and amazing, but he can also just run an offense, which is not necessarily how it was looking earlier in the season.
Yeah, no, I agree. And the other thing is that, you know, you guys you've talked about on the podcast about how Sam takes a long time to throw the ball, right? Like his average time in the pocket is, you know, way above 2.5 seconds, right? That's sort of standard. And that was true of Kirk too. And yet, you know, I would always yell at Kirk, like, you know, get rid of it, because it just looked like he didn't want to throw the ball. It wasn't quite right. You know, he was the fussiest quarterback in the world, still is. Everything had to be right. So he was going to wait until everything was just right. Whereas with Darnold, when he takes a long time in the pocket, first of all, he's buying time. And to me, that's different. When you're able to, like what he did on the long bomb to Jefferson, when you are creating extra seconds for yourself in the pocket because you know how to move around in the pocket, and Kirk Cousins can never do that. He sucked at that. Then that's different than standing back there and just waiting to be annihilated by Micah Parsons, whoever's coming at you. So when I'm watching Darnold throw the ball, and when he buys time and when he gets the pass off and I see that ball fly off the left side of my TV screen, I expect good things to happen. And that's pretty cool.
The pocket movement is another thing that I just didn't know if we were going to expect to see that from Darnold, that I think is developed within the season. There's a play on 3rd down that he converts, and they end up going down and scoring a touchdown on the drive. I think it's 7-7 at the time. And they screw up. Somebody jumps offside. It's at the 3rd and 12 or something like that. Gets a little pressure off the right side and just does kind of a pivot to create a wide open lane for himself to see Jefferson coming out of a cut. And the other thing that he's doing as the season is progressing is, I thought earlier in the year he would need to kind of see guys break open and then throw it. He's throwing with incredible anticipation now. Like, this is real growth during the season. I can understand why maybe earlier in the year you'd go, well, are they kind of just getting away with some big plays and the defense is playing great, so even if he makes a mistake, it's fine. But now he's doing the highest level of the high level quarterback stuff. Like you said, creating space for himself, converting third and longs, throwing while guys are coming out of their breaks into windows. There's a throw to TJ Hawkinson where it looks like he's staring right at the linebacker, and he throws it right by him as Hawkinson is running full speed into the football. It's just incredible anticipation, which I think has to lead me to the question that everyone wants me to ask you. I don't necessarily want to ask you, but I think I have to, about your opinion for what they will do with Sam Darnold.
Your boy Andrew Kramer, he just reported yesterday, he had that quote from Wes Phillips where he was, I'm gonna paraphrase it, but he was basically saying, hey, wherever, Sam ends up after the season, that'll be great. And, and Kramer took that as an inference that, the plan to go to JJ after the season is still pretty much the plan, right? And I'm sort of following the team's lead. I'm following everyone's lead on this because going into the season, the team said to Sam, hey, this is a 1-year deal. This is not, this is a marriage of convenience. And, hopefully we'll get you paid by, if not by us, by somebody at the end of it. And Sam was like, yeah, okay, that's great. And everyone has stayed remarkably disciplined in that regard. Like nobody, you don't hear anybody. Sam's not campaigning to keep his job beyond this season. The team's not doing the thing they did with Kirk. We're like, well, we hope he's here for a long time and all that stuff. Everyone is just sort of like, okay, let's see where this goes. And I've taken their cue as a fan, and I'm just seeing where it goes. It doesn't mean that I'm not complaining. Like, the trick plays aren't very good. I'd like to see more designed runs for Sam because there was one play in the Falcons game where I think it was one of those plays where he screams can, and anytime he screams can, it means that he's going to audible to a run play that goes like 1.5 yards, right? So he hands the ball off, and it's to one of the backs. I think it was Aaron Jones, and the back, it's an outside zone to the right, and he boots out, and Darnold boots out to the left. It's a great play fake. I think almost the cameraman was tricked too, and nobody goes with Darnold, and there's nothing but open field in front of him, and he is not a slow runner by any means. He's a world-class athlete. So I would not mind a little bit of that, particularly, and this is sort of the big thing I wanted to talk to you about, because I feel like there's still so much to be decided, particularly in this last month, because it's such a hard schedule. And because of the Packers game in the penultimate week, and I have the stat for you. In the past 3 years, we've had to play Green Bay late in the season with playoff implications on the line. We have lost those games by a combined score of 111-37. And every time it's happened, I've gotten geeked up for that game. And then the Packers come on and we start slow. And then like someone, some key player of ours tears his Achilles in like 9 different places. And then the Packers go on to romp. And then Melissa Stark offers her hand in marriage to the Packers quarterback afterward. It's disgusting and horrible. And if Sam Darnold can go into that week 17 matchup at home and just bury the shit out of that team, then I will let my imagination run a bit more wild. But I still have that's still nagging at me, that one. And I don't think that the Packers are like invincible by any means. But they have been, they've been average and still beaten the crap out of us in the past. So I would like that little loose end tied up.
I felt the exact same way about having that one circled as how's everybody going to feel about this team and this season truly will be based on December 29th. Even if you finish 14-3, if that's the one loss, then you'll go into the playoffs thinking, I don't know, man. I don't know if they can really do it. They couldn't beat the Packers at home. And I go back to the 2019 game that they had in late December, where Zadarius Smith ate every player on the Vikings offensive line. And they didn't take advantage of an early fumble, and it just was kind of ugly from there. And
it blows.
Even though that team was good, the 2019 team was good. Going into the playoffs, nobody thought they could win anything because of that game against Green Bay. So there will be the same sort of effect. I think your approach to the Darnold situation is the right one, which is to say, let's see how it plays out. Because quarterback history just tells us We don't really know on this position. Teams don't really know on this position. There are so many examples of teams thinking they had their one guy and then it turns out to be the other guy. And Kurt Warner's playing indoor football league in Iowa and then just becomes a Hall of Famer. Brock Purdy's Mr. Irrelevant. Like this stuff happens all the time that we really don't expect. We may get to the end of the season and say, it is so obvious that Sam Darnold needs to be back that everyone will know it, and that's what they'll do. Or we could get to the end of the year because there's almost a quarter of this thing left with 4 games still to go, and
it's a gauntlet.
Games.
It's not easy. Even playing the Bears on Monday night, like they should rinse the Bears in that game, but they should have rinsed the Bears in the last game. And they had all the onside kick at the end. So it was, I've been very good again about keeping this week to week, but I do know that this does not get any easier, right? And so I'm happy, I'm happy for what we've gotten so far because it's way beyond whatever we expect. And I still have that sort of reflex where, and this ages me a lot, but I'm always wondering if the quarterback of the Vikings will have that sort of weird magical season that Mark Rippon had in 1991 with the Commanders, or they were not the Commanders at the time. And I was kind of expecting that. I shouldn't say expecting it. I was imagining Kirk making that leap, which was never going to be possible because he just doesn't have the talent for that. But Sam is playing like that, has been playing like that for a month now. Does that mean it's going to last? No, not necessarily, because those teams the teams that we have beaten have been average. Like I don't think the Falcons were good. Like the Falcons were 6-6 and they had started 6-3, but I think they're a bad football team. So, if he can replicate that in a game he should win against Chicago, where they're going to wear cool white helmets and stuff, and then he can do it in Seattle, which will be hard, and then at home against Green Bay, and then in Detroit, a game that may not matter, that Week 18 one, then it will have a monumental feeling to it in ways that it hasn't quite had yet. But like that Falcons game it felt like the potential start of something, but that's as far as I'm going to take it because I'm 48. I'm old. I only have so many seasons left. So I have to, it's better I temper my expectations and enjoy what I have now, rather than fast forward constantly to the next, the playoffs or the draft or 2025, whenever we have a new, like, I can't do any of that anymore. And I've been subjected to so much, whining from other Vikings fans or trolling from just replacement level Packers fans. Like, oh, it's going to break your heart when you guys sign Aaron Rodgers. Like, we're not going to sign Aaron Rodgers. Of course we're not. He's done. That's stupid. So like, I almost feel inured to all of that. And I'm just enjoying these games on my own terms. And what I'm seeing is really, really fun football. It's just been an absolute blast.
Let me tie into that then. You've been through all the random fun seasons that we didn't expect. And in a way, I'm as surprised as anyone they're 11-2, but in a way I'm almost not, because just this is how it always works. It always happens when you sort of least expect it. Where do you put this one, or how do you compare this one to the others? To Case Keenum, to Brett Favre showing up, to going back to 98, Randall Cunningham. I mean, 99 is even kind of crazy because it's the Jeff George thing, and he comes off the bench and he's got them in the playoffs and so forth.
Yeah, but then they got rinsed by the Rams in the divisionals of that. That team never quite had the feel to it. And that was actually true of the 2001 team because, before they got to the NFC title game, they were on a losing streak going into the playoffs, that team. That they had a hot start. They cooled off at the end. They beat the piss out of, I think, someone in the division, like Dallas. I can't even remember. But they went into that Giants game, and it was like, okay, well, maybe they can get to the Super Bowl because it's Kerry Collins and the Giants. But it turned out that team really didn't ever belong in the NFC title game. They got destroyed. So it's weird. To me, this is a unique animal because Case Keenum, I believe, was undrafted, right? So an undrafted level of talent, not anywhere near the arm or the legs or the processing ability of Sam Darnold. 2009 was Favre, and Favre had long since lost any brain in his arm. So he was still doing the magical far bullshit that he does. And, and I was sort of cheering through him through gritted teeth, right? But then he throws a pick right when you expect him to throw a pick. And then 99 or 98, that was, I think, as certain as I could be about a team, except for the defense. Like everyone pins that title game loss on Gary Anderson and on Denny taking a knee. But that was never the thing that stung me the most. The thing that stung me the most was the defense, because the defense was secondary was good. It was not fantastic. And that showed up when OJ Santiago caught a long pass in overtime that essentially made the game academic, like a real sort of Chiefs style ending to it. So to me, this exists in its own universe. I never had a team where I feel like everyone at the top knows what they're doing. I feel like the roster is pretty good, although it has obvious weaknesses, right? And they're fun. They're fun to watch, but in a way that does not have me on edge. Like I have not thought, the only time in the past 5 weeks that I've thought they were going to lose is when Marvin Harrison Jr. caught that touchdown against us at home to extend that lead to, what was it, 19-6 or something like that. I was like, okay, it's just not their day, whatever. And they came back and they still won that game. But any of the other games, even the Falcons game, there was never a moment where I was like, oh, they're going to blow it. Like I didn't have that sort of just fatalist reflex where it's like, well, let's see how they f it up this time. Like just all that tired crap. Like I somehow have been magically absolved of all that. I can't believe I owe that to Sam Darnold, but I suppose I do.
So where do you put Sam Darnold then in comparison to your joy of watching these other quarterbacks? Because Darnold, they didn't show it on TV. I feel sad for everyone for that, of him pumping up the crowd. People who were watching the game said they heard something, and then Greg Olsen said something, but they didn't show him pumping up the crowd on the sideline. That was the first time that we had seen Sam Darnold show any emotion. He certainly doesn't at his press conferences, which I completely respect and would never criticize the way he has handled those very calmly.
Yeah, it's strategic. Yeah,
right. But I also think that's who he is. I mean, you see him even when he walks out, there's a winning drive to be had in Arizona, and he walks out and you see him and he looks the same. There's nothing that really changes about the guy, which I think is kind of maybe his superpower of not letting any of this ever get to him. Kirk's on the other side, the return and all that doesn't matter. Everyone's talking about talking about his contract and everything. Doesn't matter. Comes out of Jacksonville, the bad game. Everyone says he's same old Sam. Doesn't matter. He just keeps flying even. All that's pretty good. But I think that it has taken longer for people to appreciate him and what he's done this year because of that, because he's not a sharer, because he isn't really bearing his soul all the time and things like that, letting the world know who he is. I think that it's taken a little bit longer, and the skepticism and the fact that McCarthy's there and that people wanted him. It's just taken longer to adopt Sam as the quarterback. And I thought against the Falcons, that was the moment where everyone said, all right, this is our guy.
Yeah, I thought that way during the Falcons game. And then also at the end of the Arizona game, like I saw him do the double fist pump and be like, "Argh!" And he wasn't stone faced. And that was something I was sort of waiting to see from him. I'd see a display of emotion that was something that, it was an emotional release for him, but also for his teammates, because his teammates really like him and really respect him and really enjoy playing with him. And to have moments like that, sort of, those genuine earned emotional moments, I think those do matter a lot. And, just from an entertainment standpoint, it kicks ass. It's cool to see guys celebrate on your team when they're doing cool stuff on the field. That's great.
So how does he compare to the other quarterbacks in your joy for watching him?
He's been an absolute joy. I mean, he had a head start merely by being not Kirk Cousins, right? Because especially after that Falcons game, like the high of not having Kirk, like the highlight of my year was when Schefter posted his dumb tweet saying that Kirk had signed, right? It was like, okay, all right, we're finally past that. And everything has felt very fresh since then. And Darnold doesn't have the physical limitations of Kirk or of Case Keenum. He doesn't have the hated baggage of Favre. Like I've hated Favre my whole life, right? Like, and having to root for him kind of sucked. I mean, I did it because it was like, you use what is available to get what you want. And then Randall was like brilliant and unexpected and playing in ways that he had not played previously. Like Randall in Philadelphia was famous for being, sort of the defining mobile quarterback of his age and perhaps of league history, at least until Michael Vick and Lamar Jackson came along. So, with Randall, it was like he was someone who was out of football prior to that year. So it did feel like lightning in a bottle in a way that Sam doesn't, because he's so young. And this year has, like you said, there's been development, or there's been progression in ways that you and I have not seen in 6 years, because, over 6 years of Kirk, it was always like, oh, he's getting better. Well, no, he's the same, he's the same ordinary quarterback he's been, his entire career. And, trying to talk yourself out of it, you always sort of knew that was a losing game. Whereas with Sam, it's not that I have to talk myself into believing he's improving. I see it. Like, there's results, just tangible results. There are numbers that say he's improving, and his teammates really seem to enjoy it. And so that has made this year as fun a year as I can remember. And I'm someone who loved the 2022 Vikings. So I'm an easy lay in that regard, but these guys have been, I think that there's some personal circumstances too, because I lost my father this year, and I had some other other I had to deal with. So to have this team come along and be such an unexpected surprise has, it's something that I am not going to take for granted.
I'm very sorry to hear that. I did not know that that you were going through that.
That's okay. It's all right.
Yeah, with this season, I think that a major part of why it has been so fun for everybody is the personalities on the team and the way that they've come together. There's a lot of new people that you didn't know before, and then each one has kind of had their different moments. Blake Cashman, Andrew Van Ginkel almost had another pick six last week.
So close.
Jonathan Grenard, Aaron Jones, the sombrero and the personality that he brings to this team. And then I also think too that we're sort of seeing the coming of age of a coach in Kevin O'Connell. He just got here in 2022. Everything is kind of new. He's trying to figure it all out as his team keeps winning one-score games. But now he has matured into this. Like, he has his process. He has his way of going about things that works, and is continuing to prove that on a weekly basis. So all of those things coming together at once has made it enjoyable, and then also immensely interesting. Who would you like your Minnesota Vikings team to play in the playoffs? Who would you like to see, just considering the way things could play out?
Well, that's always sort of, I'm going to answer the question, but it's also sort of the loser fan mentality where you're like, okay, well, who's going to be the easiest playoff team for us to beat? Oh, I don't want to go to that stadium. That's going to be too dangerous. Like, in my mind, it's like, I don't want to play the Rams in the first round. I don't want that game, right? I'd much rather go to Atlanta. I'd much rather go to Tampa or something like that. But, in the end, it's like, okay, well, you can win your first playoff game maybe by getting an easy draw, but eventually you're going to have to beat a good team. That's just how it is. So, I would like to see them. First of all, I'd like to see them get the 1 seed that's still in play, even if I think it's more distant a possibility in my mind than it is on paper, because Detroit's been so good. But assuming they get locked into the 5 seed and they got to go to either the South or the West division winner, well, I think the South champion will be the weakest of that bunch by far, particularly now that Seattle and LA are sort of differentiating themselves in the West, right? I think going to Seattle would be hard, and Arizona was already hard at home even though I don't think they're particularly good right now. So, I would want to go beat the piss out of the South champion, and then we'll have to deal with Philadelphia when we deal with Philadelphia.
Or Detroit, depending on how it goes.
Yeah. You know what? I don't want, if we play Green Bay again, I don't want to lose to Green Bay in the playoffs. So that would be annoying. Like, I just don't want to deal with that.
At least the way the bracket looks right now, it would be going and playing, I believe it's Tampa Bay right now, and then on to Detroit after that, which I think you actually have to feel better about than going to Philadelphia, just because Philadelphia and Ford Field, and they've been there so many times, that Detroit team they know so well. It just, even if you think Detroit's a lot better, it evens things out with the fact that you know each other this well. This is why you have to take the Bears seriously, even though they've been a train wreck, but they're probably going to know you better than anybody else when they come to US Bank Stadium. And I think the same would be true for going to Detroit, and Detroit's injuries make them more touchable than they might have been earlier in the year. And when you look at when you look at too, there's always we played 1-score games. Well, Philadelphia has only the same number of multi-score victories as the Vikings do. So I'm just saying, but
Detroit has played a lot of close games too. So, I am in a spot where I feel like they can beat any team. If they go to Detroit, I'm not going to be like, oh, that's a done deal, or they're not gonna have a chance in that game. I'm fully going to be. It's not going to be like 2019 when they went to New Orleans and no one thought they would win that game. I definitely didn't think they would win that game, and then they did. This year, it's different. They can go anywhere, they can play anybody, and I'll believe that they can win. Whether or not they do, that's obviously up to the fates. But it's fun to have confidence in that team rather than, hope. Like, hope is just confidence in a flimsy disguise. This is a team that engenders confidence, particularly because of the way the quarterback's playing, because of the way the front seven is playing, and then because of the way the tackles are playing. And that includes Cam Robinson, who, I don't know what more Kwesi has to do to earn his contract extension when he's making, seemingly innocuous midseason trades that end up saving, your ass all the way through the rest of the season. That's pretty darn cool.
If they had to move Blake Brandel to left tackle for the rest of the year, it
would have sucked.
Yeah, it would have been a catastrophe. He has been a huge part of it. Cam Akers is also averaging 4.6 yards per carry as the guy spelling Aaron Jones. So another good move there.
With a doubled up Achilles injury. Like, that's
no, I know.
Can't really
cut or anything, but he could go straight and bounce off people.
I remember I texted you at one point because when it was right when I think it was the Arizona game when Aaron Jones's fumbleitis was at its peak, and I was like, is Akers the better back right now? It's almost something I wanted. And to KO's credit, he's like, listen, I believe fully in Aaron Rodgers, because he kind of had to, because he's the more talented back. So it's like you got to talk up the guys that you have to play. Because if you're just like, oh, well, I'm going to sit you down and I'm going to treat you like who's the back that got 200-yard game and then Belichick benched him, the Notre Dame guy, whatever.
Was that Jonas Gray?
Jonah what?
Jonas Gray? Was that
Jonas Gray? That's right. So after the big Jonas Gray game, and then you never saw Jonas Gray game, that's not something this team can afford to do, particularly with someone as talented as Jones. So, Kevin has handled all of this stuff correctly. And so, it's just, again, instead of me, doing all this weird sort of I'm trying to imagine workarounds around whatever problems we have. I feel like they already know their problems and they know how to address them better than I do. And that makes me confident in them. It doesn't lock anything down or anything like that, but it really is enjoyable. And I think I'm now repeating myself where I'm just saying I'm having fun, but I am having fun. I watch them on Sunday and then they win, and then I pop a gummy, and then I wait for the KO victory speech to post, and they post it. And then I listen to it. And then my wife asks me for something, and I'm like, don't ask me for something right now. I'm listening to KO talk. And then I listen to it, and I'm very, very happy.
Before you go, Any questions for me?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. First of all, do you believe Gilmore will be okay for the important games down the stretch? That's one.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. One, because Stefan does not tweet very often, but when he does, he tweets very earnestly. And he tweeted, dodged a bullet after his injury.
Okay.
And well, also the fact that they didn't put him on IR, they would need that roster spot if they had put him on IR to replace him with, but instead they didn't. So that very likely means he's going to be okay. I also want to say, though, and I know he got mossed by Marvin Harrison Jr. Fabian Morrow has actually done a really good job. And
Yes.
I've thought about maybe like the fresh legs effect where I was watching Dallas Turner and there's this jolt to him, or Jalen Redmond, who hasn't played really all year. And then he's getting in the backfield and he might just be good. But also some of these guys are not playing 80 snaps over and over and over again. And even Morrow, as I was watching him on tape, like he's running with his wide receivers. He's actually added some man-to-man coverage element to this defense that they might be able to use. They may have found out something that they can rotate a little bit with the corners as opposed to just having to live with those three all the time. But I do believe that Stephon Gilmore's injury is not serious.
Okay. Do you believe Turner can make impact plays anywhere down the stretch, or do I have to wait for him to gain weight in the offseason?
He does need to do that for sure, but
they gotta give him all the best PEDs this offseason. They gotta get 30 pounds of cream and clear addled muscle onto his body. He'll be a monster after that. But right now he kind of looks lost out there at times. Like he doesn't quite know. Like I don't think that they quite know what to do with him, and I don't think he quite knows what he's supposed to do.
Yeah, I think there's a confidence element that has to grow with him, because I think he probably thought he was going to come in and line up on the edge and rush the passer 500 times this year. That's what he was doing last year at Alabama. And they've really used him as more of a Van Ginkel type of linebacker, where he's dropping back half of his snaps in that last game. And I included it in the film study, which is in your inbox right now, Drew, where there's a play that they blitz and he's got to rotate over in coverage and they complete a pass, but he tracks the dude down. So he's in the right spot. He's making an impact with his speed. There was a play where he's setting the edge and shoving Kyle Pitts into the backfield to get a stop there. I thought on tape he had a pretty good game. It's just that the splash plays, the huge impact plays, we have not seen them in the same way we've seen from someone like Van Ginkel. Him just roasting a tackle and getting a sack or something. I haven't really seen so much of that. But I think that last game was a confidence builder for him because they did rely on him a lot and he got a fair number of snaps. It's just an adjustment to a different position. And Brian Flores saying that he spent one-on-one time with him going over everything in the week leading up to this. I think that's a positive thing too. Basically sitting down and saying, we're going to need you. So let's lock in.
If your coach pays attention to you, that means you matter.
Right.
Take it from a bench warmer. I know.
But I mean, I can't guarantee it. What I see though is I see a unique quickness for a guy his size. And I think if he starts to figure it out, he can be a weapon for them as they go forward. They could actually be getting a little bit better at that position because he could make an impact. So I think we'll see a lot of him. Yeah.
Okay. Well, and then I want to ask you about the specialists. One is, has Reichert looked good in practice to you? Has he looked like old Will Reichert in practice to you? I know he doinked that field goal against Atlanta, but it was a doink. And as funny as doinks are, they are basically, they're 1 degree off target, right? So I'm not worried about him. I would only be worried about him from an injury standpoint. So I want to make sure that you feel like he is looking at full health. And then also the return game. Do you think that there are any adjustments? And I don't believe there would be personnel or anything like that, but any adjustments they can do to get more yardage out of their punt and kickoff return units?
So with Will Reichert, at this time of year, we only see warmups. So it looks fine in warmups.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm not seeing him do like a bunch of drills and things like that. It's hard for me to say. I think if he was ready to come back and go, it should be fine. But I don't know. I mean, he seems like a kid that's pretty intense and may push himself back a little faster. He's a really good kicker. That's all I can really say so far.
Right.
So if
No, I think he was a great draft pick. I got no issue with it.
As far as the return game, would it make you feel better if I told you that it might actually be a better strategy to just not return anything?
Yeah, I mean, like kickoffs, I don't give a crap if we never return a kickoff. I don't. It was almost like when Byron Murphy caught made that great pick, but then stayed in the end zone. I was like, oh, that they may not be happy about that, and they weren't. Like they ended up putting us on the 2-yard line. But I'm always like, if you have the option of, if you have a bird in the hand with a touchback, you don't mess with it. But the punt return, there's never any danger of a long punt return out, Powell, even though I really like Brandon Powell. He's dependable in a lot of ways. But it would, if we could bust out a punt return, into the red zone, that would be a little bonus. I could go for that.
I agree. And I think also Kevin O'Connell wants nothing to do with trying to return punts. I mean, I think that after the Jets game where they committed multiple infractions while they were getting punt returns, that when you look at how the net yards plus the risk of a fumble or something like that, the benefit rarely outweighs the risk. And we just don't see punt returners anymore bringing back huge returns. Teams have gotten so scientific and good about this that is there a single impact punt returner in the league that consistently is making a difference with that position? It probably is better to just throw up the hand, fair catch. That's your question. Do you want
to what about trick return though? Wouldn't you like that? Wouldn't you like to see Kevin O'Connell draw up a double reverse return on the kickoff?
Matt Daniels might be able to do it, but if Kevin O'Connell's in charge of it, I may end up leaping out of the press box as they flip it to the backup tackle or something.
I got one more question for you.
Okay.
There's something I've been thinking about in terms of Flores, because I do not believe Flores will get a head coaching offer or an interview in the offseason because I think he's still blackballed. But one of the, and this as well as anybody, one of the remarkably valuable contributions he has made to the team has been on the scouting side, right? So do you think there is a shrewd NFL team out there that would hire that guy, not as a coach, but to run their front office?
I don't think he would ever do it. I think this is what he wants. This is what he lives for. It would be a good idea to have him be the director of pro scouting or something like this. He is incredible at this. I mean, Dwight.
Yeah, he is, man.
They've got Gabe Murphy out there playing 27 snaps or something. Undrafted free agent.
I noticed him too.
Right.
I was like, oh my God, is that like a dude got up after tackling a guy. I was like, is that Gabe Murphy out there? Oh my God, holy.
It was. Yep, it was. And Dwight McGlothern is a guy they're developing. I mean, he's just very good at this. But what you really see from him this year is how much in his element he is with these guys. Like this particular group, how he gels with that room, how he works together with the veteran players and the joy that he has for that. I don't think Brian Flores will ever do anything but coaching.
Yeah, he seems to have become mini Tomlin since his little stint in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I got no problem with that. Like Flores is like Tomlin, that guy where like, if he told me to like, grab his luggage or something like that, I would do it like as fast as I possibly could. Like I would like absolutely follow orders like to the letter to make sure that everything was done correctly the way he wanted it done.
There's two things that people buy into. I mean, one, he's intense and competitive, and you see that. But the other thing is everybody knows how smart he is. And when you have a bunch of guys who have been in the league and they've been around a lot of coaches and they know how good the man is at his job and how much he puts into it, how much scheme he puts into it, how smart he is, I think there's just a full buy-in there to their coordinator. There's a full trust with Brian Flores. And I agree with you that I think he'll be doing this for a long time for the Vikings. He'll probably be there like Steve Spagnuolo.
Do you know what it is? This is what it really is. This is the bow on it. The reason I've been able to enjoy this season sort of on its terms and just week to week is because of Flores, O'Connell, Kwesi, all of those guys, where I know that if we fail in one of the big games, something like that, that is not symptomatic of a greater problem that will take years and years to fix, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The Bears had a serious head coaching problem, and there's no guarantee that they're going to fix it. I don't have to worry about any of that. Going forward, I know that my team will be well organized and well coached. And that takes the burden off of me, imagining like having to like worry about just this team having its shit together, because it does have its shit together. And that's a nice little bonus.
It's a hard thing to find in the National Football League.
Oh my God. Yeah, there's like 4 teams like that. That's it.
Have to appreciate it when you have it. Drew Magary, Defector, you're writing about the Vikings soon. So folks should go check that out when you get that posted up there. Always great to check in with you. Those 9 people that wanted you back on the show are pumped right now.
They got their money's worth.
Thanks a lot, Drew. And you and I will talk soon, my friend.
All right. Thanks, brother.
You want to say football? You think?
Football! Skol, Vikings, let's win the game. Skol, Vikings, honor your name. Okay.
Okay, bye.
Bye.